Jack snack. Obstacles are those frightful things you see when you take your eyes off your goal. Chapter 9. Observant. If you believe like I do that life's a sales call, then you know that everything going on around you in life is part of that sales call. When you are sitting in a cafe reading the paper, who is sitting around you? What is playing on the sound system? As you enter a room full of people, who is standing in a group and who is not? What sort of conversations are these people having? Are there individuals who keep coming and going? Is there a slight commotion down the hall? Do you see anyone that you recognize from another context? Who does everyone seem to know? Observing the details around you can greatly enhance your ability to make connections with other people. The late, great Yogi Berra was famous for saying, "It's amazing what you can see if you just watch people." Pay attention, and you may learn something about someone that allows you to be his or her friend. You may learn something about someone that changes and inspires you. You may discover a hidden truth that dramatically affects a business decision. In the event of a fire, we're taught to stop, drop, and roll. In the important activity of observing, watch, listen, and learn. Going within. A while back, I was waiting in line at Love Field in Dallas when Herb Kelleher walked in. Herb Kelleher is the chairman emeritus and co-founder of Southwest Airlines. Since I had met Herb once, I stepped out of the line to say hello. Though I doubt that he actually remembered me, he responded in a genuinely friendly way. I guessed that Herb was on my flight back to San Antonio, so I made sure that I sat in front in case there was a chance of a conversation. Herb did get on the plane and immediately began helping a flight attendant stow some luggage. He then began to assist the crew with whatever they needed, passing out coffee and tea or snacks. I watched Herb's behavior carefully and realized that he is who he represents himself to be. He is not an arrogant, condescending executive. He's a warm human being who believes in teamwork. I watched as he hugged the flight attendants, and then I managed to get my picture taken with Herb. By being observant, I not only met a role model and inspiration, I also got a tangible keepsake out of that moment. Reaching out, watching the fire. My friend Randall was staying in a hotel in New York for a week. He told me the story. He said the hotel had a nice, comfortable lobby with big chairs and a fireplace. Each day as I left the hotel in the morning and then returned in the evening, I noticed the same person sitting in a chair in front of the fire. He was somewhere between 80 and 120 years old. He was dressed in drab colors and his hair was white. He was straight in the chair and stared at the fire. I didn't know if he was a guest in the hotel or a visitor. All of the rooms had fireplaces in them. I noticed that he looked sad. On the third day, I sat across from the elderly gentleman and began to talk idly about the comforts of a fire in winter. He looked away from the fire and into my eyes and saw the bright, steely eyes of a highly aware individual. His eyes also had a tinge of grief in them. As we talked, his story unraveled. As a young man, this fellow had been a soldier in World War II. His entire unit was assigned a parachute mission. The fighter plane was to fly over enemy territory and drop them down to assist ground troops. This man and all of his buddies boarded the plane. At the end of the day, only one man survived, and it was my friend. He spent that night in an empty barracks, unable to bear the silence. He took his blankets and built a fire and slept outside in the cold that night. Each year, on the anniversary of that doomed flight, he sits and stares into the fire, remembering his buddies, one by one. I was saddened and fascinated by the old man's tale. After he finished speaking, I thanked him for sharing his story with me. I told him that I had noticed him and had wondered why he stared at the fire so long. He straightened up in his chair and smiled at me and shook my hand. "Tell me about yourself. he said, and I got the feeling that I was in the company of a man used to commanding others. I told him that I was a salesman for an Italian tile manufacturer, as well as other specialty building supplies. I told him about my wife and kids and where I was from originally. After a while, he thanked me for listening, took my card, and wished me a nice stay in the city. I left feeling warmed by the contact with another human being. I was so glad that I had paid attention to the people around me as I came and went on my own business. About 2 weeks later, I received a call from the purchasing agent for a string of luxury hotels. She wanted to review the tiles I had to offer with an interest in tiling over 1 million square feet. Eventually, I asked her how she got my name and number, and she told me that the owner of the hotel chain had given it to her. It had been the man I had watched. I confirmed with her that the owner was an octogenarian man with snow-white hair. Not every point of observation is going to result in the biggest sale of your life. Life's a sales call. When you walk through it, pay attention. You'll never know what you missed. The next step. I want you to start a diary of conversations you have with clients every day. Use a spiral-bound, college-ruled notebook to take notes. After you have parted company, I want you to make detailed notes about the conversation. For instance, was there any point in the conversation when the individual moved from answering your questions in brief, polite statements and began to light up and speak excitedly? What prompted this change? Did you notice? Keep this diary for at least a month. You may decide to always keep one. Why? Keenly observing each person whom you meet and the nuances of your conversation allows you to maintain an extremely customized and personable relationship with them. The note, lit up at the mention of a camping trip, can lead you to open a conversation with, "Been camping lately?" It guides you towards sending your client notices of upcoming wilderness survival demonstrations or links to little-known state parks. Building blocks to successful sales. If you have ever been married, or even in a serious romantic relationship, you know that there comes a certain point, sometimes pretty early on, when all of your romantic gestures had better have a personal touch. For instance, if you think to bring her flowers, stop. What are her favorite flowers? What are his favorite kind of chocolate candies? Did you pay attention when she led you through the flower shop pointing out her favorites? It gets trickier. Eventually, personalized gestures are all women want, and men like them too. A blue bottle with a daisy in it to remind her of your first date. A picnic when you presented her with the same sort of bottle with a daisy. You get the picture. It is difficult to say in a relationship with another person if you are not observing that person and if you do not work to maintain the relationship. When it comes to sales and life, a maintenance policy is the way to go. I call it the maintenance policy because this has to be your mode of operations all the time. I'm talking 24/7. Let your maintenance policy become an automatic thing. When you see a newspaper or a magazine, have in mind 2 or 3 subjects that would interest a client or two. We'll talk about this more later. When you start your day, plan to invest time touching your existing clients. This is what I call a maintenance policy. Reach out, make contact, and do it in a personal way, a way that says, "I'm paying attention." As you do this, you will discover that your client has needs and wants that you didn't know about. Creating the opportunity to cross-sell and upsell existing clients is an extremely efficient use of your time. It is 6 times easier to sell additional products to existing clients than it is to find new clients to sell to. Think about how you can upgrade the services or products that you now have to offer. As your relationship with your client deepens, they become an extension of your sales force. You have shown your loyalty to them, and they return the favor with referrals. This isn't pie in the sky. This is, in fact, how the mechanism of relationships work. Ask anyone who is married, and they will tell you that it is a lot of work and it's worth it. Paying attention and maintaining the relationship is work that can be fun and rewarding if you realize that you're enriching your life, enjoying your work, and making money all at the same time. In the next chapter, I will give you specific ways that you can be nurturing towards your client relationships. At this point, I think that it's important for you to commit to maintenance. Without it, all of the sincerity, trust, and respect will become a memory in the mind of your client, not an enriching, ongoing relationship.